Well, we're right in the thick of an election here in Canada. There's a federal election, and parties are battling it out to decide who will be in control of Canada. We go to the polls, I think April 24th or something like that. Anyway, a month away from now. And so it's a compressed, a tight election, and all the parties are going at it now. I'm going to tell you what it's like being here because I'm here in Canada. I'm on the front lines too. I'm right on the U.S. border in southeastern Ontario. So there's lots of vibe happening in this area. So I'm going to tell you what it's like here. And I'm also going to today I'm going to talk about how cannabis has changed since legalization in Canada.
This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the Cannabis Goldsmith.
So anyway, for you non-Canadians, and there's quite a few of my listeners now who are non-Canadian, who are out in Australia even, and in Europe, and in the United States, I'll just give you a brief summary of Canadian federal politics. There are three main parties. There's a Conservative Party, a Liberal Party, and an NDP party, which for the longest time was considered kind of the Socialist Party or whatever, but it's not really that anymore. But anyway, there's three main parties, and they've battled it out over the years to decide who runs Canada. And Trudeau, who resigned recently to put in this new guy, Mark Carney, he was with the Liberal Party. Now, the other candidate is Pierre Poilievre, and he is with the Conservative Party. There's another candidate called Jagmeet Singh, who's with the New Democratic Party, who's absolutely almost gone. It's not even certain whether he will have enough votes to, whether he will even get elected in his own seat. So he's lost he's lost so much support that the party itself might not exist after this election. So, in essence, we have two parties in Canada. Conservatives and Liberals battling it out right now. There's a third spoiler party here, and it is the province of Quebec. They have a party called the Bloc Québécois. And this party is a separatist party. They want to take Quebec out of Canada. They want to separate out of Canada. They have no support outside of Quebec, so all their support comes from within the province of Quebec. Now, Quebec is a very large province in Canada, so it can impact our elections due to the number of the seats that they can win in their province. So how that plays out as a whole, once this election is over, is because they're Frenchies and they are from Quebec and they have a large number of votes in the House of Commons, they can position those votes with either the Liberals or the Conservatives to approve or deny stuff in the House of Commons. So they can be consequential, even though they want to separate from Canada. So that's the spanner in the wheel of Canadian politics. But there's much more stuff going on in that. But you're not interested in any of that, and neither is anyone else really. But what it boils down to is there's two leaders. There is one, Mark Carney, who's been parachuted in to take over from Justin Trudeau in Canada. Now Trudeau tried to make him, Carney, the finance minister last fall by firing his existing finance minister over Zoom, Chrystia Freeland. And Chrystia quit. And this was a huge scandal in the fall in Canada. This was a massive scandal. This cost Trudeau his job, basically. He wanted to put Carney to sneak Carney into the government, even though Carney had not been elected to a seat anywhere, still hasn't been elected to a seat anywhere. He's just a tourist, I think, coming in to see if he can win this election. But anyway, so the whole election has come about because of Trudeau's attempts to put Carney into power. Anyway, now Trudeau's gone. We have Carney battling it against the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre. Now, because of the U.S. political situation, every time Trump opens his mouth, it seems to benefit the Liberal Party here in Canada for some reason. I don't know why, but this seems to be happening in the polls in Canada. However, and there's a big however here, on the street, the vibe is different. The polls might not be related to the actual street, in my opinion. I've been watching the polls in Canada, and the polls, I think, are being gamed. They're being pushed to try and influence the masses of the population. Now, this is pretty easy to do. You can ask questions a certain way in a poll in order to make the answer, to generate certain answers. Or you can limit the size of the sample of the poll. So a lot of these polls are really small number, like 200 people. We asked 250 people, in a country of population of 40 million people or whatever. So the sample is not representative. So they're using these polls in order to get mainstream media coverage about how one side is winning over the other side. So this is all political strategy that's going on. And as a result, it's confusing. The picture is confusing about what's happening in Canada. Granted, the election has only been called 2 days ago. Most Canadians are not drinking political news from the fire hose like I do. So I guess most Canadians don't even know there's an election happening, but they will, and we'll kind of, as the snow melts and as we come around, we'll be in a place where we'll understand that there's an election happening and it's important and we should probably vote in it. Now, I made the huge mistake. I don't know if it's a huge mistake, but I made a mistake of posting on my Facebook. Yes, I still have Facebook, and I'll tell you why. I have Facebook because I have friends and family all over the world, and it's the easiest way to connect with them. Now, I don't have faith in the platform, but I use it as a channel to communicate with my relatives who live overseas so they can see what I'm doing if they're interested. If not, whatever, they don't have to look at it. So that's what I use it for. Or my friends in different cities in Canada, so they can see what I'm up to if they choose to. If not, I'm not going to push it at them, right? They can dip in and look if they want. That's what the Facebook account is about. Now, yesterday, I made a post saying who I was voting for. Now, this is a big mistake. Don't do it. Don't do it. In your Facebook account or even in person, don't tell anyone who you're going to vote for. Well, I made that mistake yesterday. I said, I'm voting for Pierre Poilievre. I'm voting Conservative because of these reasons. And then I listed 7 reasons. And the reasons were that, I'm not going to read them, but basically it's just that I don't trust Mark Carney. He's just, I don't trust him. He's come from nowhere. He won't even bring his family here to campaign with him. They're living in New York. He's living in New York. He actually doesn't live in Canada even now. He's trying to run in a seat just a little bit north of where I am right now. He prevented the existing candidate from running. When he got the existing candidate to run for the head of his party with Carney, he took the $350,000 entry fee, and then he disqualified the guy. So the guy lost his money. He lost his ability to run against Carney as leader of the Liberal Party. Not only that, Carney made him ineligible to run in his own seat. So now Carney has an opening. So now Carney's taking the seat over. Now this guy, they're claiming this guy was influenced by the Indian government. They're claiming this guy was whatever. But they took his money. They took $350,000 from this guy. And then they booted him to the curb so Carney could run in his seat. Now these are the kind of people they are, right? They're conniving. We've had 9 years of Liberal government here. So in my 7 points, I explain that I don't trust this Carney guy. He doesn't even live in the country, first off. He lives in New York. He moved his company to New York because he thought the prospects were better there than in Canada. Now, he did this in the fall. It's not even like a year's history. This is recent history. He did this in the fall. Now, the fall might seem like a long time ago, but it's not. It's just recently, right? So there's that, and then there's just this lying. He's lying about all kinds of stuff, and it's not big stuff. It's small stuff, it's little stuff. And this is how liars get tripped up. They get tripped up on the small stuff. You start hearing things. Why is he lying about this thing, right? Like, this is stupid. This is not true. And then you start to wonder, what about the rest of what he's saying? And then I just don't like it. And I don't like the government either. I didn't even go into my post on Facebook as to why I don't like the government. But I've been battling their internet. I've talked about it here on this podcast, how I've been battling their internet plans for 5 years. I've been fighting hard against the Liberal Party's attempt to control the internet in Canada. Now they do, right? They control all the mainstream media. They fund it. So the mainstream media here is afraid of saying anything bad against them because they might get their funding cut off. So that's what's happening. As a result, here the Conservative Party is not getting any mainstream media coverage. The Liberal Party is just sopping up all the media coverage, and it's become so apparent. It's obvious. But anyway, so that's the state of play here in Canada. So we have essentially an opposition leader who is fighting against a government that's been in power for 9 years with a new leader. All the players are the same essentially, except for Mark Carney. Everything has been kept the same except for one new guy, Mark Carney. Now, whether or not this changes the Liberal Party, I don't think so. So I'm not going to vote for them. So anyway, that's what I posted in my my Facebook post. And the immediate reaction was like, I think I must have, I had people who I've known for 30 years who I've had business relationships with and also friendships with, who immediately came out and like started attacking my character personally for making that decision, right? Like, what kind of a person are you in order to make a voting decision? Like, it was just strange. It was like shrill and like you can see how polarized Canada is, and just in this small, this is a better representative sample than most of the polls. I have like 700 Facebook friends, or I did until yesterday or whatever. But the sample is much better than all these stupid fake polls that are coming out in Canada showing Liberals in the lead. I have friends who were like friends, right? Who were immediately started attacking my character. So they've known me for 3 decades, and yet suddenly they don't because I've decided to vote for this person. But I explained that I'm going to vote for Conservative, primarily because of the local MP that I have, the local politician, Michael Barrett. He was a Conservative politician in my area. Now, when I first moved here, I wanted to get an internet hookup, and there's a fiber company, Bell, here, who could do it, right? So I contacted them. They put in the internet fiber cable, but they left a kilometer of cable spooled all over my property, which I had to lift up and mow under every week for nearly a whole year. And it turns out they were leaving these cables all over the land and the property here in our township when they did new installations. They were just connecting the cable up to the house and then leaving the cables strewn all over everyone's property and moving on. And for this, we pay the highest internet connectivity costs in the world. And why do we pay the highest internet connectivity costs in the world? Because the Liberal Party, they promised to reduce internet rates and connectivity rates in Canada 9 years ago, and they didn't. And in fact, they kept raising and raising and raising the rates until now. We pay the highest connectivity rates in the world. For data, for bandwidth, for installations, for everything. We pay the highest rates in the world. And the service is not as good as you can get in even some third world countries. So that's what the Liberal Party has done to our internet space, and why I've fought so hard against them to make our internet better and cheaper and more affordable. Anyway, so I contacted my MP, Michael Barrett. I said, Michael, I'm sick of this. I've got cable. I've got a kilometer of cable all on my property. I want Bell to remove it. Please help me. I've tried contacting them. I wrote the CEO. I couriered him a letter. I've done everything. They're not responding. Yet they keep wanting to bill me over $100 a month for connectivity. Do something, please. So he said, he got back to me right away, and he gave me a phone number. He said, this is their CEO assistant or whatever. Get in touch with this person and they'll sort it out. And so I did. And man, within fucking 10 minutes, like, they were calling me, they were, talking to me. And I said, okay, while you're here fixing my cable, you might as well fix the entire township, because your cables are strewn all over the township. And I CC'd that to Michael. Now, in the space of a week, there were Bell trucks all over this fucking hamlet that I live in. They were repairing, they were burying, they were, tidying up their work, they were cleaning everything up. Okay, now this is why I'm voting for a conservative. This guy wasn't even in the government. He was in an opposition. He's an opposition MP. Yet he had enough smarts and power in order to help the local citizenry get a job done that was needed to be done. Now, this is why I'm voting for him, and this is what I put in my Facebook post. So, if people are going to get upset at me for that, well, whatever, fine, do it. Vote for whoever you want. That's what our democracy is about. You don't have to vote for who I'm voting for. You can vote for whoever you want. So anyway, I likely have half as many Facebook friends today, or people think I am like Satan or something, and because I'm voting for the guy who got my fiber optic cable buried. And they think the issues are much bigger, and they're terrified. They're terrified. The Liberal Party, just like, they terrify the population, and they want everyone locked down so that we can be controlled easily. No. So I'm not going to vote for them this time. But I also said in my post that I voted over the course of my life, I've voted for all candidates from all different parties. And every single one, I voted for the New Democrats, I voted for the Conservatives, I voted for the Liberals. I have not voted for the Bloc Quebecois yet, but who knows? If I ever move to Quebec, I might. So that's where I'm coming from. But anyway, now onto the meat. How has cannabis changed since legalization? You might be wondering, like, in Canada, we've gone past 5 years now since legalization. What has happened to the cannabis itself? How has the product changed in our country since legalization? Is it any different? Those of you who don't live in legal countries, you're probably wondering what happens, right? What happens when suddenly it's all government controlled and all like monitored and expensive and that kind of stuff. Well, let me just give you a kind of an overview so you'll get a sense of what's happened. When the legalization first occurred, the cannabis companies that got licenses to produce and sell cannabis, they really had no idea what they were doing. They had zero idea. They invested in millions and millions of square feet of greenhouse space. They invested like billions of dollars in building out all these huge facilities to grow weed. None of them knew how to grow weed. And so as a result, most of them went out of business, and lots of billions of dollars were lost. Most of these greenhouses are empty and looking for other products to grow. I often see, huge Alberta greenhouses up for grabs. Just not far from where I am now, we had it was actually ground zero for cannabis legalization, Smith Falls, where Tweed began. they took over an old chocolate factory and turned it into a weed factory, and then that closed, and now they're trying to, I think the last thing I heard, they're still trying to find somebody to move into that space, or maybe they found somebody, but it's not weed, that's for sure. So everyone was all excited about the cannabis, and when it was legalized, and I was too, but all these stock bros, they were the most excited, and they came in and they sucked all the billions out of it. All these companies went out of business, and what we're left with now is a much smaller, a leaner kind of commercial market for cannabis. Like the growers and the industry is much more streamlined than it was before. There's less bloat, and that's all gone. But there is a huge problem with it in that the government taxes applied to each purchase of cannabis are really, really high. And as the industry matured over the last 5 years, the price of cannabis has gone down. As you would expect, as the industry matures and the growers get better at growing, they make less mistakes, they use better lighting, they use better nutrients, they learn what they're doing. The cost of production goes down as the market heats up and all the different players want to compete with each other. They try and bring the price down a little bit, just a little bit. But a huge part of the price is a tax slice, and that slice is not going down. That slice is staying the same no matter how much the price of cannabis goes down. So the price is being kept artificially up by tax, and that's the situation price-wise. It's still quite expensive to buy cannabis in Canada now. It's all packaged, it's all sealed, it has like a Government of Canada tax stamp on it that shows that the package is a legal cannabis purchase. They don't sell to youngsters. You need to be a certain age to buy it. The store designs here are still sad, really. You're not allowed to look in the stores. You have to cover up the windows, right? Like this kind of stuff is it's not like. Anyway, but lots of the cannabis people, the cannabis retailers were complaining that because the windows are covered up, it encourages thieves to come in and rob them because nobody can see they're being robbed, right? Like this kind of common sense thinking is what we need in the cannabis regulation. So after 5 years of this, all the low-hanging fruit was chopped off, and what we're left with is a series of companies that have to sell through provincial cannabis outlets in order to distribute their products in Canada. So if you want to open a store in Canada, you need to get a license for it. Then you have to buy your products through a government source. Now the government source tacks on their markup, they tack on the taxes, and then they ship you the product which you sell. But all this stuff comes through that government outlet. In Ontario, my province, is called the Ontario Cannabis Store. It's like a fulfillment center for the local retail stores, and for you can order from them directly if you want. You can see if you go to ocs.ca, and if you're above age, if you're of legal age, you can go in and see what they sell. So no matter where you are in the world, you can go and look. And you can see how lame the products look, really. It looks really quite lame. There's nothing fancy. Keep the idea behind that is to keep the marketing fluff out and just keep it as a way to just buy products, I guess. At the beginning, all the crooks were involved in the trade. We even had like police. As soon as the Liberal government legalized cannabis, all the police heads of the police departments and stuff started getting licenses. This is how corrupt the whole process was. We had the former police chief of Toronto, right? Julian Fantino. He owned a cannabis company. This is a guy who used to put kids in jail for smoking weed, and now he was owning a cannabis company. With his partner is some guy from the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, some head guy, right? This is what was happening. So anyway, all those guys are gone now. the market's tightened up a bit. The products themselves have become really quite strange, and this is interesting to see in a mature legal cannabis market. All these companies keep making the weed stronger and stronger and stronger, and the unit, like the SKU, like if you buy one product, whether it's a joint in one joint, for example, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the taste is I don't know. Anyway, let me describe in a way I think that you'll best understand it. It's the difference between farmers markets. Say you want a tomato. You want a good tomato. You can go to the supermarket and get a tomato, and there's a whole wall of tomatoes that look fabulous, right? With their little stickers on them, and some have vines on them. They're lit perfectly, so they look nice. Some dude might come out and spray water on them to make them, fresh looking or whatever. Now, they have absolutely no taste, as you know, no matter what time of the year you buy them, because they're grown to be shipped, and they're grown to meet certain agricultural standards set by the tomato grower. So you get that tomato home, it looks great, you chop it into your salad, and it tastes like wood. There's no taste to it. There might be some kind of nutritional value in it, but it doesn't taste like a tomato. It looks like a tomato, but it doesn't taste like a tomato. So now, this is the same thing that's happened to cannabis. All these growers have streamlined their production. They're streamlining the type of plant they're growing, a plant that can grow quickly, that they can run quick cycles. They can grow these things in like 60 days or whatever, chop them down, and then grow another one at 60 days. Just like they're being grown to be sold commercially. And this is affecting the quality. And so what they're doing is they're adding flavorants and other things to the legal cannabis to add taste to it, because there's really, like the tomato, there's nothing there anymore. So they're starting to add stuff. So we're getting flavorants added. We're getting combination stuff, because they seem to be trying to make stronger and stronger cannabis. And this is not always the best thing. I don't think it's a good idea to keep making the stuff stronger and stronger. I think we must look for genetic diversity instead, but different types, not stronger and stronger, but different types of cannabis. But anyway, the product has no taste. So they add flavorants. Now they're like, if you can buy a joint in a container, little tube it comes in Canada for whatever, $10 or $10, and $2 of that is taxes, and then the rest is packaging, and by the time the grower gets like $1 out of it, and everything else is stripped off the top, you get this joint that's might be. It might have a huge THC percentage in it, and that's because they add THC. They're adding THC to make it even stronger. They're adding, this is dipped in distillate or whatever, in order cannabis distillate, in order to make it stronger. So they're going for stronger and stronger products, and they're not going for quality. They're going for strength and shippability, and as a result, the products taste. You can tell they've been engineered to taste a certain way. And I'm not very happy with it. I much prefer a tomato grown by somebody who knows what they're doing in their own backyard. So the home growers, in Canada, we can also grow 4 plants. So people are starting experimenting and growing their own 4 plants themselves to see if they can do it. And this is how I started. I just started growing 4 plants to see if I could do it, and I could. And over the years, I've learned to grow them better, and I've made hell of mistakes lots of times, but other times not. And I've learned how to grow these plants, and I've learned about them, and I can grow decent homegrown stuff for myself now. But it's not only that, it's just the whole idea of watching the plant grow from seed and following it along the process and stuff. I like that a lot. And just like people who grow tomatoes in their garden, they like they seek out and hunt the heritage, the heirloom tomato seeds to grow them, to try them in their yard. And if they're really good, they'll keep that certain variety and they'll keep growing that, or they won't outgrow it ever again. So this is how the local, the small scale, homegrown cannabis people in Canada are benefiting from the lack of quality and the commercially available product. Like, I'll buy legal cannabis every so often. I'll go in just to see what it's about, right? I'll say, oh, let's see. And I've noticed it changed a lot. It's changed a lot. It's become very packaged goods and not so much plant, right? Not so much organic. It's packaged goods. So that's how cannabis has changed in Canada. It's become very commercial. The industry has tightened up. It's still quite expensive, and that's a large part because of the taxes. The laws need to be changed in order to adjust certain things like the covering on store windows, maybe some pricing. The tax per SKU must be reduced. All this tinkering has to be done with the next government, and I hope they do it. Now, before I go, the last thing, there have been some, they test the legal cannabis every so often just to see what it contains. And it turns out that a lot of these claims of high THC are fictitious, that the THC isn't that high. Also, that there are stuff in the legal cannabis that you don't want to be consuming, stuff like mold spores and heavy metals. Now, where are the mold spores coming from? Well, certain strains of cannabis are very susceptible to mold, and you have to be alert to control this. And if it gets into the crop, you smoke it, right? And that's not what you want to be doing. The other thing is the heavy metal content. I'll put a link in the show notes to this study. It's a StatCan study on the cannabis quality in Canada. Heavy metals are in the legal cannabis, and where they come from, stuff like boron, and this comes from fertilizers, and this comes from fertilizers that are not flushed out of the plant before they are harvested. So in these short cycle, they've got these strains that they can cycle out in 60 days or whatever, and they're just feeding them like pure nutrients, like with heavy metals and stuff in the nutrients, and this is going into the cannabis. So anyway, I'll put a link to show notes so you can look at this study yourself. Now, if you're growing at home, if you can do it legally in your country, like we can here in Canada, you can control all that. You can say, no, I only want to use organic fertilizers. I don't want to use Miracle-Gro or whatever. I want to use just cow manure, right? So there'll be less heavy metals in that, unless your cow likes Def Leppard or whatever. But that's the difference between organic and cared for and tended and loved growing and then commercial growing. So that's the difference, what's happened in the last 5 years that's how cannabis is different now than it was at the beginning of legalization. That's it for me this week. Next week is the big, April 2 is tariff reveal day. Is Trump tax reveal day. And as I mentioned in the last podcast, what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen. You guys don't, but I know what's going to happen. He's going to create a giant Mar-a-Lago. He's going to lock down the whole country on April 2nd and then decide who gets to sell products into the United States and what to charge them, what to put in his bank account in order to get access to the U.S. market. So the whole thing will be shut down. Look, I would be, if you're trying to sell products into the United States, I'm not anymore. But if you are, I think you should probably diversify away from them before April 2nd. What average people don't understand is with each of these tariff announcements, price lists have to be adjusted, content has to be changed. All this stuff has to be changed to reflect the new pricing going into the United States. And people are just getting tired of the uncertainty. And as I said, I don't even know how to price my products for Americans anymore. I have no idea. So I'm not even going to bother. So all the web, I'm doing a lot of photography this week, reshooting website images. I'm going to slowly rebuild the web pages away from American customers to focus more on Europe and Asian customers. But this is not only my tiny company. All the Canadian companies that are doing business with the United States are now looking at ways to expand markets into Europe and Asia, and are building, have to rejig their websites, their marketing material. All this stuff has to be rejigged, and this is expensive. So there's a hidden cost buried in all this for Canada, is this marketing cost that people are not yet seeing. Anyway, we can do it, Canada. We can do it. We're smart. We're strong. We're tough as nails. We make the best products in the world. We are sitting on a huge pile of natural resource treasure that's ours. We can do it. And we will. We can do it, and we will. We'll succeed. We'll win. Fuck those guys. That's what I say. Let's win. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. We recorded in our studio in southeastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence River, where we can see America across the river. Subscribe to the Cannabis Goldsmith wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show and tell your fellow artist friends about it. It's the only artist podcast coming to you right from a studio every Wednesday morning. We'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. Oh, if you want to reach me, send me an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening.